Welcome to the VMware Multi-Cloud Briefing, where we discuss how to turn multi-cloud into a competitive differentiator to accelerate your business. Today's briefing is about helping you navigate the current macroeconomic headwinds, whether it's the high interest rate, lingering supply chain disruption, or turbulent geopolitical condition. We know that IT can play a critical role in helping the business navigate this type of situation, and history teaches us that tough market condition often provides opportunity to emerge in a stronger position. So today in this briefing, we want to help you throughout this journey by exploring strategies and technology that will help you, one, achieve your business goal while optimizing your cloud spend, and use multiple clouds to accelerate growth while bolstering the resilience of your business. But first, it is my absolute pleasure to introduce a leader who has a track record of using innovation and technology to successfully navigate many business cycles. The CEO of VMware, Raghu Raghuram.
Thank you, Vittorio. It's great to be here.
So, let's talk about the global economy. What do you hear from customers?
Yeah, it's been a super interesting transformation in a very short span of time, right? For pretty much a whole decade after the great financial crisis, and even more, money was basically free, right? So companies were free to go invest as much as they wanted. And clearly they invested a lot in digital transformation, once in a generation transformation of their businesses, right? So it made all the sense in the world to go invest as hard as you could. In the last 12 months, things have changed pretty dramatically, right? It's the geopolitical shocks for sure. It's the supply chain issues. It's the rising interest rates. It's inflation. It's the fear of recession. And all of the second-order effects that go along with that. The nervousness about commercial banking, for example. And these are all just part of the economic cycles that our customers have to deal with. So the CEOs that I talk to, they have a phrase for dealing with this. They say we used to be all about just offense. Now it's offense and defense.
Can you elaborate more about that concept?
So when CIOs talk about going on the offense, or even CEOs in many cases, it's about accelerating digital transformation and the macro. So what does that mean if we break it down? Number one, it's about building their new digital applications faster, getting them out to their consumers faster. Right? It's about getting to the cloud faster. And it's about empowering their employees. We're all living in a distributed work. We are living in an age of distributed workforce with the modern digital tools, right? So that's what offense means, making the employees more productive, building the next set of digital technologies, AI technologies, etc., and taking advantage of the cloud to the maximum extent. At the same time, they have to play defense. What does defense mean, right? Number one, it's about cost. It's optimizing their spend on technology so that you get the biggest bang for the buck. It is about modernizing the infrastructure in their data centers, making it more efficient, making it more scalable, making it more cost-effective. It's about creating a zero-trust model in the enterprise, especially for their critical applications, protecting it from the east-west traffic. So it's about offense and defense. That's what I mean by offense, is driving digital transformation. Defense is about doing it while controlling cost and security.
So tell me how our cross-cloud services, our product portfolio, helps organizations achieve both.
That's the beautiful thing about the VMware portfolio at this point in time. It's very unique in helping our customers achieve offense and defense. 3 out of 4 modern applications are built on the cloud. And you go talk to any development shop, right? Either the developers or their managers will tell you the developers spending too much time not on writing the business logic, but a lot of the work it takes to go put the application into production and secure it and manage it, the day 2 operations, etc. Right? And our Tanzu portfolio accelerates developer productivity, increases developer productivity, accelerates the path to production, and our Aria portfolio makes it possible to manage it through the life cycle, right? Through our observability tools and through our management tools. So it's Tanzu plus Aria really enables customers to move faster on their digital transformation and their modern application.
I want to now show how our customers are using VMware Cross-Cloud services to accelerate their journey into the multi-cloud. Let's take a look.
Cloud Smart is for me the next evolutionary step in the cloud journey, but also for the cloud industry.
We used to have in our strategy document cloud first, but it clicked for me when I saw Cloud Smart, because it is not about just blindly going to one cloud.
Understanding, first of all, how big is the problem, and then understanding where am I on the journey. That is absolutely key to control and then get from chaos to smartness.
The security of your application, the accessibility of your application from various parts of the world, how you utilize these apps, to me, is really what the start of being cloud smart is.
It's been, I think, a lot more difficult than many had expected. Kind of the smart cloud journey is what we're approaching, and that's really where we want to end up.
So these are great customer examples. Do you have one from your own experience?
Sure. I was just talking the other day to the CIO of one of the largest insurance companies in the world. They're an amazing example of this cloud smart approach because they've got still a lot of applications in the data center, some of which are actually being modernized in the data center because it's got to connect to the mainframe that's in the data center, right? They're using Tanzu. At the same time, they very rapidly migrated a whole set of mid-office applications into the cloud, and they're doing new machine learning and AI-based applications natively on the public cloud on top of Kubernetes, and it's all managed consistently. So that's an example of using the right tool for the right job, but having a consistent way to manage and secure and connect all of these things together.
That is a great example, and later in the briefing, we're going to explore the technology that makes that possible. But first, Raghu, we've been here 25 years as a company, and you've been here for most of it, from workstation to cross-cloud services. What are you most proud of?
So you just called me old, and I'll let that pass. More than any individual technology, right? It is a technology arc that I'm super happy about and most proud about. Because the common theme here is 2 or 3 themes. One, identify a fundamental area where customers are facing super important technical issues to solve, right? That affects their business. Secondly, come up with an approach that is fundamentally not only disruptive to the status quo, but very often 10x better than the previous approaches. And if you look at our successful products, that's what's common across all of these, right? It is this marriage of meeting a customer where they are with the problem that they have with a fundamentally different and better approach.
Yeah, I've been a product manager here, among other things, and that feeling of having an engineering team that doesn't just write software, they create magic is incredible. Thank you very much, Raghu, for being in our briefing today.
Thank you, Vittorio.
And now I want to turn to Purnima and John to talk about how to maximize your investment and minimize your cost in a multi-cloud environment.
Hello everyone, this is Purnima Padmanabhan, and today to talk about cloud cost management, I have here with me John McLaughlin.
Thanks, Purnima. Glad to be here.
Great. So let us get into it. I mean, cost and especially cloud spend and cloud cost management has never been a hotter topic than before. It is primarily because over the last few years, many enterprises, many of my customers have actually invested heavily in cloud and infrastructure, and they have built a lot of capacity. But as you know, with the current events and current economic conditions, 2023 truly has become a year where enterprises are looking back into their spend and saying, how can I get the most of what I'm spending and how I can optimize it to the best effect? And that trend, of course, extends to cloud cost management. Now, when you think about cloud spend, cloud cost management, and overall spend, it is a very broad topic and it has many different facets to it. Now, John, prior to joining VMware, was a customer. And so I'd like to turn it over to you, John, and ask you, how do you think about cloud spend and cloud cost management, both as a customer and now as a vendor?
Well, thanks, Purnima. I do think that, when I was a customer, what we struggled with a lot was translating what was just a raw, billing file, telling you what you spent in cloud environments, hybrid, public, and multi, into something that mattered to your business. So I think where we took the bill was looking at how to contextualize it and then benchmark it against how we're doing, both to the metrics of our business, our budget, our costs of goods sold, and then how to optimize it. So what does correct look like within a given application of your business? And then finally, how do you maintain that optimization so that going forward, you don't keep running into the same hurdles of trying to run an efficient workload? So a lot of what we've been able to do there that I found worked for me in my life as a FinOps practitioner has been to be able to look at each cloud as we're using them, each capability of that cloud, each service, and use those services to align to the applications that are utilizing them to make them successful at understanding what is the impact of using each service against the business impact of the service that you're offering the market.
Your focus was not only providing visibility, and when I say visibility, it is looking at bills, but also looking at an aggregate view of how you're spending across different services, across different teams and different applications. And then it is about how do you benchmark for a given application, for a given team, for a given region, against what is the golden standard? How do you optimize, right? And get the absolute right fit. And optimize doesn't necessarily mean always downsizing. It could also mean right sizing for the business, right? And finally, how do you maintain it on an ongoing basis? Now, of course, these are hard enough when you have just a single environment, on-prem or a public cloud. But when you have multi-cloud environments, it becomes even harder. And then when you compound with the fact that it's rarely ever about just optimizing cost as a single vector, but it is optimizing cost in context of all the other vectors so that you get the highest business impact. It makes it very hard.
So building on that, Purnima, you run a large product organization focused on a lot of different disciplines. What happens in your world with that lack of visibility? And what are challenges that customers that you've seen had when they don't get that type of visibility in their environment?
We run a large software organization, and much like the problems that I face are very similar to the problems that my customers face. Rarely do I go to my team and say, just give me a better cost. I want to tell them, hey, it's all about business impact, right? Give me the least possible cost for the performance that I need. I need less than X minutes of X seconds, microseconds of latency anywhere my application is accessed from. Or I need geo availabilities across America, APAC, and Europe. So these might be the constraints that I'm giving around cost, but also around performance and security. And so cost is rarely optimized in isolation. It is in service. And you're often saying, how can I get the best cost for the performance or the security characteristics or the business characteristics that are needed? And many times in the industry, this part is missed out because there are a lot of tools, but very few solutions that focus on holistically giving you that answer. And to some extent, John, that is where I've been seeing the industry evolve from just cost and spend management to this discipline called FinOps. And I know you've been very engaged in FinOps from very early on. Share a little bit more about that.
Yeah, Purnima. I think the cloud FinOps movement started as an offshoot of the DevOps movement. So it's both a philosophy and a practice. And so you see people who are practitioners of that philosophy, but you also see operators and engineers working together in cloud centers of excellence to be able to drive change through establishing best practices. So it involves a cohort of personas And then those personas are really focused on giving those best practices back to lines of business to be able to adapt their practices in their development lifecycle to be successful at not just managing for performance or security, but also in ensuring that efficiency that you just mentioned is available. And as you said, no one wants to turn everything off, just to save $1. That's not efficient. To be efficient, you have to run the right technologies and at the right capabilities, and you need to understand the business impact of those capabilities against how you're making revenue and margin against it. So really the cloud FinOps practice is focused on establishing that capability for you to understand the business impact, apply technology best practices across a broad set of personas in operations, engineering, and FinOps.
Yeah. So we went from cloud spend as a small line item, potentially like something that could be just calculated through a tool, to really what is needed is not just a solution, but also a set of best practices on how you have to create an organization to truly drive the discipline of FinOps. And the discipline of FinOps not only takes care of that life cycle that we talked about, but it also requires you to take cost and make it available and visible all the way through shift left. The developers, ideally during the application construction itself, should know the implication of their architectural choices. The pipeline and the owners who are setting up the development pipeline and the DevOps pipeline should know the implication of the number of jobs that they run and where they run and what is the cost impact. And then finally, from an operations and scale out and production perspective, you have to have the implications on how broad the footprint is, how much do you scale, how do you scale out at peak times versus shrink back at less peak times. Those are all key aspects that customers have to think about.
So Purnima, as you mentioned, the cloud FinOps practices are larger, have more influence across more personas than ever before, and this is a growing discipline. What do we feel like in the VMware's approach to cost management that's different?
The first part is, when you look at cost, a lot of times it's about looking at aggregate. It's looking at understanding cost across all environments. So truly, right from get-go, thinking about multi-cloud costing, that also includes on-prem. Because the trade-offs you're making is, do I put an application on-prem or do I put it in the cloud? When do I put it in the cloud? When do I migrate? These questions and what-if analysis and forecasting decisions require you to have a multi-cloud presence. It also has to span the different types of technologies, whether it is PaaS services, Kubernetes, containers, and so on, right? So that is very important. The other piece is, when you think about cost, you want to make sure think of it as a solution rather than a tool. So what does it mean? We look at the entire life cycle all the way from a lot of work on visibility at different levels, to the developer, to the DevOps person, to the CIO, at different levels of visibility. But also, how do you make it easy to benchmark out of the box? How do you make it easy to optimize with out-of-the-box automation capabilities? And how do you make sure that you have policy-based approach to keep it in compliance? So the entire life cycle is the other piece. And then the final piece is, which is probably the closest to my heart, and especially as we launched the broader Aria portfolio last year, and with anchored by Aria, Hub and Graph as the common data source, is never think of cost as an isolated discipline. You are doing cost and you're managing your cost to a particular business objective. And often the business objective is not just cost reduction in isolation, but cost has to be combined with performance and security characteristics. And that is what we are really doing uniquely. Rather than thinking of performance management, security, and cost as multiple disciplines, we are bringing them to a single platform. And not only are we bringing them to a single platform, we are making it available through the entire life cycle of an application through shift left, all the way from app development to app going to production. If you have the right sets of best practices, the right team alignment and org alignment, and the right solution partner, you can go from cost being just a bottom line thing that you optimize for, to truly something that can also become a key factor in your revenue, driving your revenue. And that is kind of the whole goal of what we are doing as VMware. Not cost just for finance people, but really cost as a fundamental discipline that goes all the way from app development to DevOps to core operations and to finance and security. What are some of the best practices? I mean, top of the mind, I have one is make sure you create a center of excellence team that is not just about finance, but brings operations, security, as well as your developer and DevOps representative to carve out best practices for cost management.
Yeah, absolutely. I think embracing the philosophy is the first step. And if you don't have people who are engaged in the problem, it's hard to move the needle. I think the second step that we see is make the right thing to do the easy thing to do. And what I mean by that is you have to transparently be able to collect all the necessary metrics and metadata and information about the resources that you're operating and what they cost, so that you can show back to the business where you are. And so I think that's sort of the next big discipline that you start seeing in cloud FinOps.
And the next to that would be use that data to create a shared accountability model. Cost can never be driven just by a central ops team. There has to be a shared accountability between the app development teams as well as the operations team. And everybody should have, as you said, with a common view, should also have the ability to do the common optimization, actions, and day two operations so that you can continuously bring costs down.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. And frequently what the next thing that our customers end up doing is they're setting up optimization best practices. So moving from just seeing what a chargeback looks like and what someone's spending to knowing what the best value they can generate from their usage is by establishing things like right sizing or reservation or discount optimization or waste reclamation through policy is really how people grow towards seeing the impact of their choices.
Yeah. And the next best practice is, okay, now you have all these optimization recommendations, connect it to two things. Connect it to your business objectives through things like unit economics, as well as connect it to the other operational disciplines, namely, make sure you understand what is the performance characteristics and the security characteristics. So for any environment that you're optimizing, you understand not only cost, but also performance, security, and business impact.
Absolutely. And the final piece is an extension of just what you described, which is, and I just did this with one of our largest customers yesterday, ensure that the whole leadership team is aware of what decisions are being made and how you're actually being successful. Celebrating that success and building a virtuous cycle becomes what makes these practices flourish for a long time inside of businesses.
Oh, very well said. I mean, really, even with my own team, I found when one of the development teams, actually it was a team that had developer, DevOps, operations all coming together, and they presented how they had cut costs by 40% while actually increasing the speed with which they were doing deployments. I mean, that just went viral with the rest of the team. And it then sets a natural, healthy goal within the internal organizations to achieve for more. Hey, John, this has been a great conversation. Thank you.
Thank you, Purnima. Thank you so much.
Hello, my name is TJ March, and I'm a senior technical marketing architect supporting VMware Aria. Today, most enterprise organizations face an enormous responsibility of having to manage an environment that is multi-cloud, having both an on-premises infrastructure and a footprint in multiple public clouds. VMware provides customers like you with the tools to manage, optimize, and govern your infrastructure. In today's demo, we're going to be focusing on cost and capacity management using VMware Aria solutions. First, I will cover cost optimization and governance of your public clouds using VMware Aria Cost powered by Cloud Health. And then my teammate, Brandon Gordon, will be covering optimizing energy consumption of your on-premises environment using VMware Aria operations. Beginning with VMware Aria Cost powered by Cloud Health, we're going to take a look at a couple of the capabilities and features spanning reporting, optimization, and governance that are designed to help customers take control of their multi-cloud infrastructure. To start, we're going to be looking at one of the key building blocks of cost optimization, right-sizing. With VMware Aria Cost, our right-sizing engine provides recommendations on key resources such as Amazon EC2, Azure VMs, as well as Kubernetes to optimize your infrastructure and eliminate wasted spend. When we talk about right-sizing in VMware Aria Cost, we put the control of our right-sizing engine in your hands, giving you, the user, the ability to define your ideal conditions using custom efficiency targets. While we provide out-of-the-box efficiency targets, custom efficiency targets give you the ability to define your requirements of what an oversized or undersized instance truly is. Our recommendations are broken down into 3 categories: good fit, over target, and under target, with over and under target assets having recommendations to right size or terminate the instance. Diving into an individual recommendation, we provide up to 3 different right-sizing options that would meet the need of the instance, based on its history, letting you choose which will work best for you. As I mentioned, VMware Aria Cost also extends this right-sizing ability to your Kubernetes infrastructure. For Kubernetes right-sizing, we provide recommendations for request hours, for CPU and memory, for individual containers. Using the user-defined efficiency targets, we offer recommendations on where the requested hours should actually be in order to make your container infrastructure more efficient. Another key capability when it comes to multi-cloud cost management is governance. Let's take a look at anomaly detection. This is designed to help users be alerted and then mitigate when unwanted and costly cloud surprises occur. Whether this is an unexpected unwanted price increase or an unexpected price decrease, anomaly detection helps users stay on top of these spikes. With anomaly detection covering AWS, Azure, and GCP, it gives you the ability to filter the data so it is most meaningful for you. For example, like only showing anomalies over a certain dollar amount or percentage. Using AI and machine learning algorithms, as well as 13 months of historical spend, anomaly detection pulls all of the suspected anomalies and puts them into some easily referenceable charts, sharing the impact of all anomalies, as well as placing the individual anomalies into a table for further evaluation or export. When diving into a specific anomaly, we provide more insight into the history of that anomaly, including the ability to view past anomalies that have occurred on this instance. Unique to our platform is the ability to submit feedback. This provides you with the ability to mark it if it was an unexpected anomaly, a known anomaly, or not an anomaly and instead a false positive. In addition to tracking your anomalies, submitting feedback also helps improve our algorithms to better track and identify these anomalies in the future. When we click into View Root Cause, we take you to an in-depth and customizable report called a Flex Report. Our Flex Reports provide you with the flexibility to analyze data across various measures and dimensions. By putting this anomaly into a Flex Report, you're provided with the options to change criteria via filters, edit dimensions like chart type or category, and ultimately share, copy, and save the report to give visibility to other team members and watch this anomaly going forward. And now, I'm going to hand it off to Brandon Gordon, Staff Technical Marketing Architect, to share how customers are using VMware Aria operations with their on-premises environment in order to optimize their energy consumption, as well as the integration between VMware Aria Cost and VMware Aria Operations for data center deployments.
Hi, I'm Brandon Gordon, a Staff Technical Marketing Architect for VMware Aria. Thanks for joining us today. As businesses and organizations face a rising cost of energy in their on-premises environments and are becoming increasingly conscious for their impact on the environment, reducing power consumption has become a key consideration. Effective reclamation of resources, such as idle or oversized VMs, can help reduce cost while minimizing waste and power consumption. Capacity management is critical to sustainability efforts as it involves optimizing the use of resources to ensure they're used efficiently. This demo will explore strategies for lowering power consumption, improving sustainability, reclamation of unused resources, and capacity management using Aria operations. I'll be starting with the sustainability page. Green score allows an organization to track where they are in their sustainability journey and how they are progressing over time. The score is based on 5 crucial aspects contributing to a green data center. Next to the green score is our power consumption, our carbon footprint, and our environmental impact. The clean to min section allows me to see the efficiency of all of my workloads. As you can see here, we have plenty of room to improve our workload efficiency by cleaning up powered off VMs, idle VMs, oversized VMs, snapshots, and orphan disks. Lean operation shows me the resource utilization from our servers and storage, while virtualization shows the amount of the environment that has been virtualized. Okay, now that we understand the state of our environment better, let's explore some optimization opportunities. The Reclaim page here shows the optimization recommendations available. In addition to the environmental impact that we already covered, we can see the potential cost savings and capacity savings for powered off VMs, idle VMs, snapshots, and orphan disks. When I select a VM, I can see how much money I can save and how much capacity it'll free up. I can act on the recommendation right here, or create a schedule for later. Automation Central allows me to schedule reclamation and right-sizing actions to optimize my cost, capacity, and environmental impact automatically. Ultimately, reclamation helps you use your on-premises resources more efficiently and run a more sustainable data center with less power. This is just a small glimpse into Aria operations. I encourage you to analyze your data center similarly to see how much money you can save. You can sign up for a free trial if you don't have access to Aria operations today. Thanks for joining us today, and I hope you have a great day.
There's no doubt that the world of information technology today is operating in a multi-cloud world. Similarly, there's no doubt we're also operating in a very challenging economic climate. Now, regardless of the state of the economy, organizations should always be innovating, keep pushing themselves, keep pushing the boundaries of innovation, trying to maintain that momentum of innovation. However, when the economy is fragile, organizations often have to find a balance between that innovation with being more efficient, more strategic, optimizing costs, minimizing risk, effectively finding that balance between offense and defense within the organization. This is kind of being cloud smart, I might say. So there are definitely unique challenges to the multi-cloud environment. Now, one of those in particular is resilience. Now, why is resilience particularly important in the multi-cloud world or in a challenging economic climate? Well, don't think of resilience in the context of I need to design infrastructure to protect from acts of God, but what about something like ransomware and a malicious act of man against my organization? Now, in any economy, a ransomware is the last thing you want to happen. It could be particularly impactful to the business during a down economy, but certainly not something you want either way. And I'm not just talking about the cost of the ransomware event, if you indeed choose to pay the ransom, but what about the cost to the business operations, or potentially compromised sensitive data? More importantly, maybe even the loss of trust in the eyes of your customer. Maybe the data wasn't that significant, but having to announce this breach and losing that trust from your customers or your partners, or in some cases, if you're a public company, investors, which can be detrimental to the organization. So a really strong, a good resiliency strategy is always important, but maybe in these times, even more critical to focus on that balance between offense and defense when I'm designing infrastructure. Now, resilience is also particularly important and challenging in this multi-cloud world because of the fact that the silos that are created by these multiple clouds present this challenge that makes it difficult to enforce consistency across all of these different environments, right? Building a security posture that can be maintained across all those environments. Now, obviously, as I start putting workloads into different clouds, whether that's my private cloud or multiple private cloud instances, or a VMware cloud or a native public cloud, what I'm doing is creating this much larger attack surface, which becomes more difficult to protect it effectively with all of these different endpoints and workloads in different places. There's APIs, there's virtual machines, there's containers all over the place. So to be a cloud smart organization, you need to look at your multi-cloud environment, not as the individual pieces, but in a holistic nature, and then try and build a strong, consistent security posture across all of that. Well, let's take a look at kind of 4 steps that you can you can take to try and get to this resilient architecture. Step one, we'll say, is design. So when you design this environment, what you should be looking at is the environment holistically, but with security as a core focus, not an afterthought or not something that might happen as a byproduct of a different technology you choose, but really focus in on security as part of that design process. The second step would be protect. How do I proactively protect the assets in my organization? And we could think of things like your external firewall, which most organizations already have, but taking that next step in security and attacking that lateral battleground, the lateral traffic within your data center. So internal firewalling capability. And then maybe I can add to that intrusion detection systems and intrusion prevention systems. So now proactively looking for those known bad things that could happen in my multi-cloud environment. But, we're going to open ports and protocols, and those are legit ports and protocols for legit traffic. But ultimately, we're going to get to a point where we still need to monitor the environment. We need visibility into the traffic flow. So doing things like network traffic analysis or network detection and response will help us to look at the traffic in this multi-cloud environment and then correlate things together to determine whether an attack is happening. Being able to put these flows together and identify a campaign where somebody is doing something malicious, maybe leveraging those ports and protocols that we opened. It's not a known bad event, not a known bad malicious attack, but we're able to correlate those things together to determine something has happened. And then the final step would be recovery. So what happens, say a 0-day attack, and there was nothing we could have done to prevent it because there was no known signatures, but we were monitoring, we did see the attack happen, and now we have to take those steps to be able to recover. How do we get the data back? How do we get our business back up and running? And that's where recovery comes. And the interesting part about these 4 steps here is, the more you can do here in the front, the greater the chance that you may not have something happen on this backside, right? I hope that my monitoring tools never show a campaign, right? This correlation of flows into a campaign, because hopefully I'm doing all the things that I need to do to protect my environment from those types of things from happening. So again, we're trying to find that delicate balance between things we can do proactively and then what do we do in a reactive nature in the event that something has happened. So resiliency is taking on this whole new concept inside of the multi-cloud world. But as an organization, you certainly have the opportunity to be cloud smart and to do the things you need to do to protect as your multi-cloud environment grows. Now let's go ahead and take a look at a demo specifically in the recovery area where we can see what happens if we do end up needing to pull data back to get our business up and running.
Hi, I'm Mike McLaughlin, and today I'm going to give you an introduction to VMware ransomware recovery. As modern ransomware threats continue to escalate and become a top priority for CIOs worldwide, organizations need to implement both preventative as well as recovery measures. This is especially important and challenging in a multi-cloud environment, where the attack surface is greatly expanded, there are more endpoints to protect, and data is often generated at the edge. Traditional disaster recovery solutions are not sufficient to meet the needs of the business as threats become more sophisticated. Let's take a closer look. This is why we created VMware Ransomware Recovery, a fully managed ransomware recovery as a service solution that enables safe recovery from modern ransomware attacks. Let's take a look at this solution's robust capabilities. Technologies such as snapshot immutability and air gapping have become table stakes. In addition, most attack vectors today involve fileless methods, which cannot be detected through traditional file scanning. For this, we can validate restore points using behavioral analysis of powered-on workloads in an isolated recovery environment, or IRE, in the cloud, and prevent reinfection with advanced networking integration capabilities, along with guided workflow automation to quickly identify and process recovery point candidates. Along with guided workflow automation to quickly identify and process recovery point candidates, all within a familiar VMware environment and at an optimized total cost of ownership. VMware Ransomware Recovery is equipped with a step-by-step workflow that guides users through the 4 key steps in the ransomware recovery process. First, spinning up a safe, controlled environment to curate recovery points. And for this, an isolated recovery environment is critical, as it provides a greenfield quarantine space to safely test and iterate workloads which could have been compromised. VMware Cloud on AWS provides a complete software-defined data center, or SDDC, construct pre-built with the components you need for an IRE. With other solutions, organizations are left with the daunting task of building, securing, and managing their own IRE. But that is not the case with VMware Ransomware Recovery. A VMware Cloud SDDC can be provisioned at the push of a button, configured with single-click VMware NSX advanced firewall capabilities, and directly attached to the immutable resource of recovery points that can be iterated over in short order, all from the solution UI. Second, identifying recovery point candidates. With a deep history of immutable VM snapshots, choosing viable restore points can be a non-trivial task. Considering the long dwell times of modern ransomware, you must consider that some of those snapshots might be compromised. Identifying recovery point candidates amidst an extensive backup catalog is a critical and potentially IT resource-intensive task, which we dramatically simplify. Using guided restore point selection, you can visualize data entropy and change rate metrics to better understand how the data within a certain snapshot has evolved over time and define whether it is a viable candidate for recovery. Third, validating and curating recovery points. Once you have identified your recovery point candidates, you must safely validate them to make sure they are free of malware before restoring them back into production. While the application VM is running in the safety of the IRE that you just created, it can be automatically instrumented with the latest NGAV and behavioral analysis tools in VMware Ransomware Recovery. Use these tools to conduct a system vulnerability analysis and identify fileless attack vectors and malware anomalies present in modern ransomware attacks. From the Recovery UI, your infrastructure team can easily collaborate with the security team to determine the best remediation path. You can also leverage file and folder level restore for a more granular recovery capability. And you can safely iterate and validate various recovery points until you're ready to restore back to your production environment. And finally, restoring your workloads back to your production environment. The guided workflow experience in VMware Ransomware Recovery integrates identification, validation, and restore of recovery points back to the production site to simplify these recovery operations. Ransomware attacks will continue to proliferate and affect organizations worldwide, but there is a way to stay resilient and recover quickly even if attack gets through. VMware Ransomware Recovery is purpose-built to deliver confident recovery from modern ransomware, quick restore with guided automation, and simplified operations. Thank you for joining me today.
We truly hope that you enjoyed our briefing. Remember, economic headwinds can provide an opportunity for your business, but only if you keep playing offense and continue to innovate. And let's face it, multi-cloud is the architecture for the next foreseeable future, but it comes with complexity and cost. And as you saw in this briefing, you can turn multi-cloud into a competitive advantage using VMware cross-cloud services and play both defense and offense as you adopt a cloud smart approach. Let us help you become a cloud smart organization. Thanks again for joining us. See you next time.